gavel. Gotta turn your mic on, please, sir.
This is Robert Preston speaking. This bring the civil service meeting to order, and the time is 12:37.
Let me call the roll.
Roll call, please.
Robert Preston,
Here.
Jean Embler. Here. Judith Ann McLaughlin. Present. Linda Hine. And, Mike, he resigned, so he will not be here. So today we'll first, after approval of the minutes, we'll need to appoint a vice chair and a chair.
Okay, do we have any public comment at this time? Is there anything by email?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no public comment. Next, we'll move on to adoption of the minutes. Does anybody have any issues with the minutes as they were written?
I make a motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Judith Ann McLaughlin.
Approve.
Jean Embler.
Approved.
Robert Preston.
Approved.
Motion carried 3-0.
Okay, next on the agenda is appointment of the vice chair and then now a chair. But since we don't have all the participants here that could be here, we're just missing one, right? That would be Linda Hine.
Yes, sir. We'll start advertising the vacancy.
If I may, Linda's had conversations with me because of her situation. She won't be able to attend the meetings until something changes physically in the meeting room. So she must have had a conflict today, which is why she's not attending on Zoom. But I think if you, I think you probably need to, my suggestion would be make a decision between the three of you here, because you're here.
Since we're here, okay. Do we have any recommendations for chair?
I'd like to nominate Robert Preston as chair. I second that.
Thank you.
I third it.
Can I vote on my own position?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is for chair for Robert Preston, would be Jean Embler.
Yes.
Judith Ann McLaughlin.
Yes.
Robert Preston.
Yes.
The motion carried 3-0, as Robert Preston being the new chair.
Congratulations.
By default, thank you. And now we will take nominees for vice chair. Do we have any volunteers?
Well, I was going to nominate Jean.
And Jean was going to nominate you.
I would accept, yeah, I will volunteer.
Do we have a second to the motion?
I second that.
Judith Ann McLaughlin.
Yes.
Jean Embler.
Yes.
Robert Preston.
Yes.
The motion carried 3-0. The new vice chair is being Jean Embler.
Congratulations. Okay, topics for discussion is continue review and making changes to the draft personnel policy. So there was a bunch of comments. Came in, and as I'm prepared, I left it on my kitchen table, all those comments.
Comments? Yeah.
And
It was written at home and compiled together. We would ask, I believe so, with the labor attorney, we read all the comments into the record.
I don't think he heard you. Before we start that, I'd like to welcome aboard Sean Lilly to the city, and hopefully he will do a good job for our city. And a good personnel HR director is a mediator between the administration and the employees, and to act fairly for both. And it's merely not a one-sided issue. So I hope that you'll be able to continue with that type of environment. Thank you for coming aboard.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, if I can suggest maybe, since the comments came from the board, maybe have each one of the commissioners walk through their comments, since we have to read them into the record. That way we can accomplish both things at once. Does that make sense?
It does, but if we're going to go through the document one by one, wouldn't we be reading them in at that time anyway?
You could do that, I think.
Okay.
And then we wouldn't, then we have something to reference to in the document, rather than reading them all out at first and then trying to come back to where we were. Does that make sense? Okay.
If we can, with your indulgence, I'd like to have, Sean has had an opportunity to go through some of the changes and also our old handbook that we had. And, he's obviously comes with a lot of experience and the certification. So I kind of, it's sort of like when E.F. Hutton speaks, we listen. Not to plug anybody in particular, but I value his opinion. So I don't know if, Mr. Lilly, if you have an opportunity, you want to give them your opinion at this juncture of 2.5 weeks in reference to this process?
So I am the new guy, the new kid on the block, but I don't have a boy band behind me. I haven't made it all the way through the new handbook, but I've actually been using and gone through the old handbook. And what I've sort of come to a conclusion that the new handbook, although pretty detailed, is I don't find it as easy as the old handbook. I think that, this handbook is from Manatee County, and I called them yesterday. They have 2,000 employees, so that's 26 times the size of Madeira Beach. I'm a little bit concerned that it sort of overkill on some policies, whereas our old handbook is actually pretty precise. You know, it's what the city wants, is what I'm here to do, but I've, like, you know, this is my first municipality, but it's not my first rodeo. I've been dealing in government for many years, and I always find, like, the larger the organization, the larger the policies in the handbooks. I was actually, when I read this one for the first time, the old one, I was actually, like, pretty thrilled. It's pretty clear and concise. I mean, it needs work. I mean, I'll be the first one to say that it needs work. Some of the stuff is outdated, but I'm not sure it needs as much work as the new version. You know, I think that we can make the old version into a good, workable handbook for this size city. And I'm too new because one of the things that I think that a handbook and policies have to do is reflect our practices. And I'm not quite sure yet what Madeira Beach does. I mean, I've been here 2.5 weeks. I work 20 hours a week, so there hasn't been a heck of a lot of time. And, you know, some of the things that I do see is that, in my opinion, there's some practices that we need to change. They're just sort of outdated. And once we change those practices, I feel like they should be reflected in the handbook. So my recommendation is, being the new guy, is maybe we slow down a little bit, and we try to figure out what actually we really need. And I'm not sure, I should have started with a question. I'm not sure what the goal is. Like, did something happen that said we need a new handbook, or is it just like something we think we need? So,
I think there's something for Claire to answer. I think we have to review this every so many years. Is that correct? Is that the reason we're doing this time?
Well, the Board of Commissioners had directed the Civil Service to look at it this time and to go through and to work with the labor attorney on revising, but it does require, and the Civil Service meets quarterly to check to see if everything is going okay with what's in the book, and, you know, so it's up to the Civil Service Commission how often. I guess it all depends on how it's working.
But the charter requires us to meet 4 times a year.
Yes, you do. Yes, sir.
That's right. To review personnel policies and procedures and that type of thing. So I think that's where it's coming from.
And increases and stuff like that.
And I think if I might be wrong, but I think the labor attorney was directed by the commission to come up with something different or workable, or look at our employee handbook. And that's what he came up with.
I mean,
But I'll let you continue.
no, I mean, policies are always constantly being rewritten and updated. You know, I understand that, but, you know, a handbook is something that all employees really should be able to understand, and I'm not sure that the new one, an average employee is able to understand it. But I think the old one, they can, and everybody's used to the old one, and one of the things that I prefer personally is not to necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater, because, you know, the baby's kind of okay, might need a little bit of, you know, cleaning up or whatever it may be. But, you know, it's the will of the city, what the city wants to do in the end. But I just know from my own experience, I feel like it's a huge shift, and comparing them together, I don't know. I need to know more about how you guys do things. But I wonder how much the new one might lock you into somewhere you don't want to be, because it is so detailed.
I would like to add that, because of the question that Mr. Preston had asked, the draft was given to the board, and you go through it and accept or not accept, make changes, whatever you want to do, and then whenever the city manager concurs with it, it goes to the Board of Commissioners in ordinance form, and for the commission to consider, they can adopt it as is or make changes themselves, and that's the process.
And one more point I kind of want to make is, I understand the need to try and cover everything, but my experience, I've negotiated like dozens of union contracts, And the minute it's ratified, something comes from the blue, and you're like, oh, we never thought of that. You know, so I don't think, I don't want to say wiggle room, but I think that sometimes it's good to be able to interpret something rather than having to do something. Makes any sense.
So I have a question for both. Go ahead, Attorney.
Mr. Chair, commission members, so the project began because there was a particular discrete issue that I was asked to look at. And I'm not sure for the new director whether you know the history of the city's legal representation, but up until last year, I think it was, there was a different independent city attorney, one sole practice fellow, and the city used a Tampa law firm for when it needed it. But the personnel policy that we sort of inherited when we took over, our firm took over as the city attorney's office, the city. And in examining the discrete issue, and for your edification, I've done labor and employment law since 1994 for cities and counties in Florida, both in-house and firm-based, litigated probably 80 cases in state and federal court, practiced before PERC and so forth, so I have a bit of experience. And so in discussing with City Attorney Trask and the mayor, it was suggested that we bring our concerns about how the current policy is drafted to the commission, which we did, and the vote of the commission, I think it was unanimous, was to instruct our firm to just set aside the old policy and to start from scratch with a new policy. One thing I will say, Mr. Chair, is I think that this process, there needs to be, in my opinion, more coordination between my office and the city's management before we appear before you, because this is the first time I've even heard that there's a new HR director. I've never met him. He's never spoken to me. I have no idea what his granular concerns are. And so to now say that now that we're down 60% of the road of the process, that we're going to scrap everything and go back to tweaking the current policy, you know, that's not my recommendation, and that's not what the commission voted for. But obviously, the city manager and his new HR director can take that to the city commission, and if they want to give a different direction, then they can. I'm only here to give advice. Speaking generally to the comment about complexity and length and so forth, I only advise from my experience, and my experience is that you try to put into your policy not just things that happen on a normal basis, like hiring somebody or whatnot, but things that, while they don't come up on a regular basis, it's very good when the issue comes up to have it in writing. I think that the product that I produced, while certainly we've been going through and doing tweaks and so forth, does bring a lot of certainty. With respect to the comment about having flexibility as opposed to being locked in, quote unquote, again, it would be helpful if I know exactly what flexibility is needed and what things that the city management is in fear of being locked into. But I will say from my experience as a litigator that many lawsuits, many union grievances and so forth come because management does want flexibility, and flexibility can morph into unequal treatment, inconsistency between departments, and so for things that are legally important to me to tell my clients, we got to do this way, you know, or you're opening yourself up. I think consistency and certainty is important. So again, if there are specific things that the HR manager, HR director sees that he feels is too locked in, it would have been helpful before the lights got turned on and the microphones came on for him to have reached out to me to try to work that stuff out so that we could come to you in a unified sense, both management and your legal counsel, and not have you having to parse between competing documents, which isn't where we have been. So I don't know if at this point you've now gotten recommendation from management that he wants to go to a complete different document. I came prepared to continue to talk about the document I produced. I don't know if y'all want to adjourn with a direction that we figure this out. I don't know where to go from here, but I apologize that y'all got put into this, but this is the first I'm hearing that there's a change in direction.
When I listen to Mr. Lilly, and I've listened to you, and I've reviewed the old document, it's Robert Preston speaking for those in the audience, that we went from a document that was minimal pages, that had probably more guidelines than they did strict rules, to a document that had a whole bunch of strict rules, and that so many of those, when naming parties and people and positions and stuff, that absolutely did not apply for the city of Madera Beach. It doesn't fit Madera Beach. So I was just a little bit taken back just a minute ago about the conversation that you have not had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Lilly. And I thought that I know he has a lot on his plate early, but I would think that that would be one of the first things to be done, like you said, before it's brought to us. Because you are the experts. You are the attorney that defends cities. You are the person that is the mediator between the city and the employees, is the HR person. And I understand where the attorney's coming from. But with the overall picture, this is just a little insight of mine. Most attorneys don't make it easy for the employees. Convenient. They want to protect the city at all cost. And I understand that as far as litigation. But there's some fairness. Since I spent a lot of time in unions, campaigns, representation, we need a good policy for both employees and the city. And I agree 100% that I think that we should postpone what we're doing today. Let the city attorney, the new HR director, city manager, and the old, and I think you ought to include Karen as well, because she has a lot of history within the city, and get together and then come back to us with something that you all can agree with, and you feel it's a good policy, and then come to us and then let us take a look at it. I think that would be prudent. I made a lot of comments, and I got tired of writing, but there's a lot of things in the document that I didn't agree with, a lot of different things. So, but that's just me. So it would be my recommendation at this point to adjourn this and schedule a date in the future, that we have something that the parties agree on, or have some type of consensus.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before you go down that road, again, I think there's a total of 60 some odd hours between the 2.5 weeks that, we've had an actual human resources director on board with the credentials, okay? So I know you all have a tight schedule, and trying to get a meeting together is really hard, and I appreciate this commission's work at it. This is not meant to be anything derogatory towards our legal representation, but there just wasn't enough time, and I think to come up here and throw another stumbling block at this commission to, slow things down or stop things. I just wanted you to know, since we had the meeting scheduled, that, there are other thoughts out there. The jury's still out in my head of what I think is best, but I wanted, I value your opinion as well as a commission, and that's what I'm trying to garner, because ultimately, it's what I need to present to the commission, and our legal representation is correct. Ultimately, that's where we have to go, and our charge was to look at this thing, and, Rob's totally correct. The thought process was to adapt it from something that has already been used in the past, and, but again, there's just a fresh look at the thing, and, as you know, I've been through here, and I gave you my comments and everything, but I was geared up with moving down the road with the new agreement and starting from scratch. But Mr. Lilly has brought, some food for thought. And not that I take lightly that you all are here and to have this get pushed off again, but I think, Rob's correct. I mean, maybe I have the cart before the horse here a little bit, and for that I apologize. I didn't mean any disrespect to you, Rob, and to the commission. I just want to have the best product to protect the city and our employees, and that's really where I want to go. And I think Mr. Lilly will be the first one to tell you he hasn't been through everything. I have we've had a couple new employees start, and we have had a lot of other issues that he's had to deal with, and so he hit the ground running. So I am the one to blame, not him. So I apologize that, there wasn't a reach out to you, Rob, but, I think we're going to set the record straight and get on the same page, and we'll be right there.
Thank you, City Manager. I'm not focusing blame on anybody. I want a good product as well. And at this point, I don't think we can have a good product because we don't have the information and the great minds behind it.
I think it's just valuing the feedback that we get, and I think with that, it'll help steer us in the right direction and come up with the right decision.
Commissioners have any other comment?
I just want to be sure that I understand. Are we deciding whether we just postpone until the meeting takes place, as compared to proceeding, at least reviewing our comments, so that everyone sees where we are, and then let the meeting go forward? I'm not sure I understand what's being proposed.
Okay, what I would propose is, because some of the comments that we have made very well could be incorporated in, my comments go through the whole document, and that's a lot of time to be spent here in discussing. And if some of those comments are no longer valid one way or the other, then in something else that they bring to us, then the time that we spend here right now is not as worthwhile as it should be. I think we can still hold these comments, because I would imagine the format with the numbers and the items and stuff very well may be similar. But I don't wanna do things over and over and over again. So I would like to postpone until they get together and they bring something back to us. I would suspect that it would be a document different than what we have here right now in some form. May or may not be. But we do not have as far as I'm aware, City Clerk, a deadline to finish this at any certain point. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And we're using the current policy as it is
Yes,
right
sir.
now.
Yes, sir.
So, we have a policy that is being used. It's workable. The HR director and the city manager and the employee should follow that as it is, even though it may have some questionable things in it. It's still workable at this point in time until we have something different. So we don't have to worry about getting it done right now.
I guess a question, you mentioned that there was a situation that occurred that caused the commission to ask for the manual to be redone. I don't want to go back into dirty laundry, but is there anything in this document that, in your opinion, puts us at risk, that needs to be immediately revised in case our process goes out several months?
Well, I think the city manager will recall when we discussed it with the city commission that I characterized it as the policy overall as pretty awful. And again, that's my experience speaking of stuff that is written that's clearly not legal, stuff that is written that are not in there that clearly should be in there to have a best practice. In terms of urgency, I think there's just, I don't see, I really, really don't want to do a piecemeal kind of a thing, I think we need to just have a complete new product. My hope, again, knowing that the HR director has just joined the city, that he will be able to find the time to go through and figure out, what he wants to do, what document he wants to start from, such that we don't have to wait another 3 months for us all to get back together. But I just, there are things that every week that goes by, I wish that y'all had that you don't have. And it's, we've got a fairly stable crop of employees, and so, there's not a lot of claims being generated or whatnot. And my role, as I think the chairman, acknowledged, is to worry about the worst case scenario. I mean, that's what lawyers are supposed to do for their clients. And so I am concerned about a few things that could come up if they should come up, and us not being prepared. And I've shared those with the manager, and I've shared those with Karen. And when the time comes, I'll share them with our new HR director. But my recommendation is not to try to deal with the things that I'm really concerned about. I appreciate you asking that question, but I just think it would be better, it would be more productive to just come to you with a complete, whatever it's going to be, document for the city to go ahead and adopt. In terms of employees being used to something, change always happens, and so within 6 months, a new personnel policy will fade into the background noise, and employees will come to be used to it. That's in part a function of management, making sure that employees understand what it is and what it does, maybe a cover memo, having if you have questions, please come ask kind of thing. Those questions and concerns can always be addressed. It's anytime you change something like that, people can freak out and say, "Oh, what are you doing to me?" and all that kind of stuff. But there's nothing that I've recommended that can't be explained. I came prepared to speak to all of the questions and comments that you guys had today, to explain why and so forth. But as Chair indicated, if the city's management team, and ultimately they're the ones that are going to be recommending it don't want a particular thing, then he's right, you know, it may disappear, and so why waste time talking about it? So I think what y'all are I think about to do of just adjourn, instruct, management to confer, and when they have a product that they want to recommend, set another meeting for you all.
Thank you for that, and with that, I'd like to propose that we adjourn, that we reschedule after the parties have had a chance to get together and decide a course of action. That said, I would like to add a sense of urgency to this. I share the concern that there are things that put us at risk, and even though we don't have an official date, I would like us to act as if we did, and you know, move this process along.
I agree with that, but the time frame will depend on the city manager, the city attorney, and our HR director on when we receive this back. And the city manager will direct the times of the meetings and duration and all that stuff. So do we have any idea?
Well, my plan is to get Rob and Sean and myself and Karen and get back together again next week if we can. I'm not sure what Rob's schedule is, and I'm sure Sean can work out his schedule, and I'll move things around if I have to out of mine. I think for the most part we'll be able to sit down and go through concerns out of the documents and address those concerns so we have a more unified front for this commission. And you know, if it takes some crafting of different language, that might take, you know, a couple weeks, but I want to be on it as soon as we can. So I agree with you. I hear your concerns, and you know, I think that's something that we can work on. And
So if we were to set up a meeting 30 days from now, would that be sufficient time?
We have it scheduled that the revised handbook, once it's complete, by the attorney's office, city manager's office, HR, and this board. It's go before the Board of Commissioners at their workshop meeting in April. So that's the fourth Wednesday in April. So we need to get through it and everything, meet, their team meet, and then you all meet, and then come up with something to take to that workshop.
So,
And I wasn't aware of that date either. What's the date that it's
That was just changed this morning. It got placed on the April workshop meeting.
who placed it there?
Remember, we wanted to move it yesterday, and you had asked me to move it this morning and put it on the April workshop because it would not be ready for the BOC at the March meeting.
Right, so we can move it again if we need to for
Yes.
the April one.
That's the place, that's the card holder right now, placeholder.
I want to make sure we have the best agreement that we can come up with,
Yes.
best booklet. So that's really my goal, you know, and I appreciate your patience, but, you know, there's things that I didn't think of, 4 weeks ago when, I was looking at this issue as well. So I just want to have an opportunity that we can get through it. I know it's laborious, but I think it's an important function. So then if we tweak it as we go and not overhaul it. And I think that's kind of, what we're looking at. But, we have a difference between defensible and practical. And so when we sit down, we'll work those issues out and we'll deal with them. So as I said, you'll have a more unified position from all the parties that are involved.
so I'm looking for the time frame, and
I think
we
30
would,
days, we can schedule a meeting
and then we can have the documents a week before that 30-day mark?
Hopefully, if not, then we might have to push it back. But,
Okay.
Not knowing until we get into it and hearing both sides of the coin, so to speak, I just want to make sure that, we get, the best for our employees and for our residents and our city commission.
Okay, agree with that. Shall we look at a date? And Clara, you could, I know your calendar in this chambers is quite full, and everybody's calendar, so you could probably give us something to start with, please?
I will, let me pull the,
30 days? Megan, do you?
we have,
If I haven't introduced her, this is Megan Powers, my executive assistant, and she also keeps the records of the chamber usage, so. And she also tells me where I have to be.
Not where you go, right?
Right.
I am very impressed with her.
the packet for the, workshop meeting for April the 28th, if it should stay there, is done on about 21st or the 22nd of April. So you would have all the way from now until about the 19th. About, I would say the 12th of April, because it's got to go to, well, it would be gone to the labor attorney.
Well, we're on the 4th right now, so just, looking out on the calendar, 30 days from now would be roughly the 3rd or 4th of
Which is
April.
Easter weekend.
Is it?
So, the following Tuesday, the 6th, or we can do it on the 1st, the Thursday, it's a Thursday in April.
The 6th at 1 p.m. Does that work out with the commission on your schedule, so?
Do you think we'd be finished by 3:30?
Pardon?
Would we be finished by 3:30?
I don't,
Or is it, are Wednesdays better? Wednesdays are better for Rob, and we can have it all day. The chambers are open all day, so you can set the hours on Wednesday. And I don't believe I have anything related to the commission on Wednesday other than getting the agenda out in the morning.
Judith, what's
I
good
can't
time?
do the 7th.
Pardon?
I said I can't do the 7th, but the 14th is my spring break, so I'm wide open.
But that's, we would have to delay the document to the,
Can we
which
go,
we probably will, to the commission anyway.
what about the 1st? I can't remember what you said. Or,
That would be a Thursday, or the 8th is after 1 o'clock, we're okay in here, and on Friday all day, the 9th. And Mondays all day. That's kind of the chamber usage. I don't know if any of that works.
the 9th is fine, the 8th
8th
is
is the
fine.
8th is fine?
After 1 o'clock
I have a meeting at 3:30 on the 8th, but anytime up until 3:30.
So 1 to 3:30, they only gives us 2.5 hours. Or you have to leave before then, you have to leave at 3.
can we do it
Yeah,
early?
I can, it's an online meeting, so if I left at 3:15, I'm okay.
You said Friday was okay, though, for you?
Yes.
Okay. Friday's okay for Rob.
Can't,
You can't?
no.
That's right.
Well,
Okay.
I would come in, but I have a commitment that day.
No, I understand. That's the joys of having a part-time. And Monday's a no-go? Or yes?
Not the 3rd, or 5th.
Okay.
But what was wrong with the 6th?
The 6th, it starts at 11, and I thought you couldn't make the 6th.
I could do up until like 3. I have a 4 o'clock meeting that isn't in person.
That's only gonna give us like 2 hours, so, if y'all wanna go through and get this done. I mean, I have no problems pushing this back. I know we're trying to get this to fit into our widgets here, but
So I'm thinking I don't think 2 hours is enough. We've already spent
Almost an hour.
almost an hour just doing this. So, and we haven't got the meat of anything. So, I know the commission would like to see this done as soon as possible, but if it doesn't work out, they'll have to be understandable. If they don't, am I free to talk to the commission?
You can talk to them as an individual to one of the commissioners. You can't talk to all of them unless,
Right.
you know, you're in a public meeting.
Yeah, if you appear at a public meeting, you can talk. But because no vote has been taken of this board, you'd be speaking for yourself and not on behalf of the whole board.
But obviously I can lay the predicate, being the manager. I can give them an update on where we are with this process, just so they have an idea. They all know we just hired Sean, and I have expressed to some of the members, but we do have a meeting on the 10th, so I can give them an update under my report where we're at.
Okay, so what does the week of the 13th look like for,
That's perfect for me, is my spring break. So I don't have meetings or classes that week. I can be very flexible.
and Rob?
That's
Monday
good.
the 12th?
That's good for me.
And Megan's checking the chamber. Sometimes we have the planning commission here, but I think they're in the evening, correct? They're not meeting that week?
We are in the,
12th is all of it,
Robert's on
is
that
available
board.
all day.
okay, so now, a time, so we can hash this out. How about 9 o'clock in the morning on the 12th?
Well, that's a bit difficult for me because I come from far away. So if you could at least do 10:30, that would,
10:30?
yeah.
Okay, and then we might have to take a break for a short period of time and then come back. I don't want to rush through this,
Sure.
as long as the discussion that we're having is valuable. I want to continue to try to hash through it. If we're off in the weeds someplace, I don't want to do that. I want to get through it, get a product, and get done.
So
Okay,
April
so
12th at 10:30?
10:30 on the 12th. Any disagreement? Any conflicts with anybody?
Sounds like we got it.
Okay, do we have to have a motion and a vote for the 12th?
No, I think, it's just a matter of setting up the
Consensus?
meeting. So, and, we can give Linda the option again to do the Zoom meeting, and, hopefully she can attend through Zoom.
Okay, and commission members, do you have any other comments at this time? City clerk? HR
No
director?
comment.
City manager?
Nope, thank you very much for your
Okay.
patience. and-
Thank you very much, and we'll call this meeting adjourned at 1:26.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies.